This reading feels like it's about ancestral healing or some type of disruption that's occurred for you in your family. It doesn't have to be like your 3D living human family that exists on this planet right now. This could be, again, lineage stuff, ancestral stuff that it feels like you've been unpacking and moving through lately. And I think for a lot of you, because the theme of this reading, according to the Astro Dice, is Cancer, Saturn, and the 12th house. So this could be extra pertinent for folks with strong Cancer placements, strong Capricorn placements, maybe Aquarius too, maybe Pisces too. We also have Aries, Scorpio, and Capricorn again. We have Aries twice actually. So any of those signs could be relevant here. And it feels like you've been really kind of exploring the ways that you've inherited patterns of violence, patterns of aggression and ego, maybe more like kind of ego stuff, if not like outward aggression. And it feels like historically, though, there's probably some violence that's occurred in your family line and maybe domestic violence. I'm going to add a trigger warning to the screen for this reading. But it feels like you're needing to affirm yourself because we got this placeholder card that says you're a badass being full of life, love, and possibilities. Emphasis on the possibilities. Because I think for many of you, you're undergoing this change where you understand that the Emperor reversed, which can be a violent and abusive energy, a violent or abusive person, someone who misuses their power. And I think that the misuse of power, I mean, that's something that's familiar in so many of our lineages, and it's something that like occurs because of colonization and colonialism and imperialism, and we're seeing that on such a grand scale right now. But I think that we're also understanding the ways that these dynamics have plagued us in our own families, the ways that abuses of power have occurred on an interpersonal level within our families of origin, the way that we get conditioned into that by just the violence that we see around us constantly, the violence of capitalism, the violence of stepping over people on the streets, as is the case in a lot of cities. I used to live in San Francisco and I worked in tech for a while. And when I would be in like the Soma district in San Francisco that borders on the Tenderloin, which is an area of town that has a lot of poverty and a lot of houselessness, I would see people wearing their like Google backpacks and their like Salesforce backpacks, and they would practically be stepping over people who were laying on the streets. And it was very dystopian and very disturbing. And I think like that is a good example of the violence that we see every day. Like, that's not outward violence per se, but it's like the violence of stepping over a human body or stepping around a human body as you're on your way to your tech job and ignoring the life that you're just kind of passing by as you go on with your life. And that's not, necessarily because of like individual evil so much as it is just the way that we're numbed to life. And I think that death is coming up here because there's some type of radical transformation that you're undergoing. And with the Four of Wands reversed, it's like this is deeply related to home, deeply related to community and the way that you perceive community and the way that you've maybe had to remove yourself from communities that were unhealthy for you, the devil showing up. And so it feels as though like there's a real sort of paradigm shift that's occurring for you where you are recognizing what you've inherited and maybe what you've been indoctrinated into. Maybe there was a lack of care or lack of empathy or compassion that you kind of had to live in previously in order to make sense of the world that you were around. Maybe you had to kind of numb yourself to the pain of others, had to numb yourself to reality in order to kind of get by and not be like brokenhearted constantly. But it feels like part of the process that you're undergoing is this breaking open, where you kind of come back to your heart. You come back to the connection to all beings. When we see the 12th house here, there's an energy of interconnectedness where none of us are separate. And it's a very sort of Piscean like ideology or philosophy that none of us are separate, that we're all connected, that we all kind of are plugged into the same source. And I think that when you plug into that source, it can be very overwhelming because you plug into kind of the collective psyche and the collective emotions, which are really rough. Like, it's not easy out here. This is a really difficult time. And so the violence that we're witnessing continuing to unfold, not just in Palestine, but in Congo, where a man set his body on fire in order to get the attention of basically the West, which has been paying no mind to Congo for the most part. The genocide that continues to unfold in Sudan, I know Armenia, like there's so much pain and there's so much happening, and it can be very painful to be connected to the whole. But when we remove ourselves from that, we also remove ourselves from life and from truth. And so I think whatever's coming up for you that's more personal, that's more related to your lineage, to your family of origin, to your ancestors, it's really kind of like a microcosm of the whole. And whatever violence maybe you're having to heal from or your lineage is having to heal from is sort of a microcosm of that collective violence and of the collective disregard for life, of the misuse of power, the abuse of power that we're seeing at such a grand scale and have for ages and ages. So I think there's some shadow work that's on the table for you when you're up to it. I want to like always say that that's not something you just like la-di-da into and start like unpacking your shadow stuff, because if we do that when we're in a state where we're depressed or emotionally flooded or overwhelmed, it generally does not lead to good places. So I think something that would be really helpful is for you to spend some time just first, if you can, finding some degree of solitude. Maybe it's like one day or one night this week where you can just spend some time in silence. The 12th house loves silence. If you can turn off your phone and put it in another room for like an afternoon, for an evening, and just spend some time like being with your body and being with your guides and dedicating that time to the healing of not just your lineage, but also the healing of the collective. I think that on the other side of that, there's going to be an opportunity for you to maybe dig a little bit deeper into this stuff that's coming up, into the disharmony that you experienced and how that's a reflection of the aches and the grief and the disharmony and imbalance that we're all experiencing together and that our earth itself is experiencing too. So a lot here, a lot of stuff and not easy stuff, but you have what it takes. It sounds kind of silly, but like you have what it takes. Saturn is showing up here as a guide for you, and potentially working more closely with Saturn could be really beneficial for you, because Saturn is a planet that invites us into responsibility. And it feels as though you're being called into some new level of responsibility when it comes to lineage healing and ancestral healing. And understanding that when you engage in that kind of work, it's not just benefiting you, it's not just benefiting your family and your bloodline, it's benefiting the whole, because you are a microcosm of the whole. So I hope that helps. If you are interested in a personal reading, you can find the link in my description, or in my bio, I mean. I'm offering 2024 year ahead readings. They're recorded audio readings. There's a $33 option and a $66. One is lighter, one is deeper. And I'm also offering a 12th house reading called The Portal just through the end of 2023. And that actually goes into a lot of ancestral healing and kind of unpacking the unseen material that's affecting you.